In this lesson, we're going to use Unity's new input system to execute code when the escape button is pressed. To start, we're going to import Unity's new input system package. It's going to ask us to disable the old input system. We're going to go ahead and click yes, and then we're going to need to restart Unity. Once you're back in Unity, we're going to create a directory called input. And then within there, we are going to create a new input action, and we're going to call it controls. We're going to go ahead and open that up, and then I'm going to create two action maps, gameplay and UI. And so during gameplay, if the player presses the escape key, we're going to open the pause menu, and then in the UI mode, when the user presses the escape key, we're going to close the pause menu. And it's useful to make this differentiation because when the pause menu is open, we don't want to be taking regular input. For example, we don't want the player to be able to move while the game is paused. And so now I'm going to create another folder called input, and then I'm going to generate a C# class based off of our controls into that directory. So it's going to be assets / core / scripts / runtime / input. And we're going to set the namespace to core.input, click apply. In Rider, we're going to create a new scriptable object called input reader. And then I'm going to make the menu name input / input reader, and the file name is going to be input reader. We're going to make the scriptable object implement the iGameplay actions interface, as well as the UI actions interface. Then we're going to check if the context was performed, which is essentially saying whether the button was pressed or not. And if it was, then we're going to print a log statement. Now I'm going to create a new directory called UI, and then within there I'm going to create a mono behavior called UI manager. And then our UI manager will have a reference to our input reader. And then in the onEnable function, we're going to listen for the paused event. And so this should actually be invoking the action, and then we should be making the log statement in our UI manager. So we'll call the function onPause, move it after the event functions, make sure that we stop listening on the onDisable, and then we'll just print paused. Now back in the input reader, we're going to want to create a new instance of our controls class. So we're going to check if it's null, and if it is, we're going to create a new instance, and then we are going to set the callbacks for our gameplay actions and UI actions to this. And then finally, we're going to enable our controls. Now in Unity, we're going to create a new scene. We're just going to call it pause. And then within here, I'm going to create a new empty game object and call it UI Manager. And we're going to add our UI Manager script. And I am going to create another directory to store our scriptable objects. And then I'm going to make another directory called input, and then within there I'm going to create an instance of our input reader, drag it to the UI manager. Now if we press play and I press the escape key, we can see the log message.